Everybody, it's Marty, the JavaScript party. I left Red out in the living room just because like we're getting a new internet today. It's not quite a new internet. It's kind of like so we had have two internets. We have Comcast. I think it's called Comcast Uverse, and then we have AT&T. But AT&T, the problem is we have some sort of technical glitch because and it's a result of just our technology just getting really old. Like, well, we signed up with them, I want to say in well, so we were with Bell South and then it became AT&T, and T, and somehow I think we've been with them since the 90s, but um through different sort of vendors. I'm not sure though. And then so we ended up at the router that was like from 2014, I want to say. And then the router was they don't support the router anymore. But then they were like, okay, here's a new router, and they sent in the mail, and it just didn't work. And there's just some sort of weird technical glitch going on. And the problem is AT&T is just this massive organization, and they just can't they're perfect. They're great when everything works, but when things don't work, they're not really agile, or they just can't change fast enough. They're too big and bulky to be able to really help anybody. That if you can't just be a normal cow in the lot, they just don't know how to deal with you. So we ended up trying to buy a service called Earthlink, I think it's called. And Earthlink is sort of like you basically it's just AT&T, but they have a terms of a guarantee of service sort of contract with AT&T. So like when you call AT&T now, if you call them up and you say like, hey, you'll go into like a phone tree and then you'll probably wait anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes for them to then give you the option of them calling you back. And then they'll be like, we're going to call you back in like 90 minutes. And then they'll call you back in like 4 hours. And then when they call you back in 4 hours, who the heck knows? So it gets weird. Um, they just really can't do anything. They're just too big and bulky to actually handle anything that's at all outside the norm. And we've had this technology for like so long that we're outside the norm now, and they just can't handle us. So we're hoping that this Earthlink people, they actually have a a contract, and so we have to pay them $19 more a month than we would to pay AT&T directly, but they have a contract with AT&T, and T, and now AT&T will come out. And so like when we call AT&T, they're like, oh, okay, these are the ranges of hours that we can get to you, and we'll be like, okay, we want like 4 to 8 p.m. And they'll be like, okay, well, if they call at 3 and you can't do it, then they're just going to cancel your call, and then you have to get back on and reschedule. And it's like, wait, I'm not going to be available at 3. And they're like, well, if that happens, that happens. Like they can't handle anything. But we're hoping with Earthlink, we're paying the extra $19 a month, and that they'll be able to, like when we call them, we're only on hold for maybe 2 minutes, and then they get on, then they can make a call to AT&T, and they can get on. They're not on hold for hours on end, and then when the people come out, we're scheduled for an actual appointment. So we're hoping that whatever is glitchy with our system that will get worked out because we're paying for this higher level of service. But we had to sign up for a whole year, so it's basically $250 for someone to come out and make sure everything works. And then if they make sure everything works and it's still screwy, someone gets back out, and basically over the next year, and then maybe next year we'll go back to AT&T, or maybe we'll stay, whatever. Anyways, so we're working on routing, and we're sort of kind of deep diving into making all the different pieces work as we want. And we have this line here that starts at line 31, it ends at line 30. And what happens is basically this is doing like 3 sentences worth of work. And I like my functions to, I like once this is, well, it looks like it's a bunch of lines. It's really just one line that I've just spaced out so that it looks like a bunch of lines. I like every line of my code to, if at all possible, to map to one line of actual English instructions. Um, So in this router event subscribe, that is saying, hey, I want you to subscribe something and do something. So that's, I would like you to subscribe to router events and then execute this code. That's one line. Okay, so then this here is saying, hey, we're going to get an event and I want you to check, and I want you to check it to see if it's the navigation version of the event. We're going to get a bunch of them, but I only want you to do something if it's the navigation version. That's a sentence. And then here it's like, I would like you to set the layout and pass it the URL. That's 3 sentences. So I would like to get this down to where it's just like one sentence. And so I guess I see a lot of times the name of something like this will be like a handle. So it'll start with the word handle. So like handle router events. So that's what this thing does, and it accepts an event. And I cannot figure out how to TypeScript that. And maybe that would be a good question. So like if I do this, let's copy this. And like I said, don't do this at work. It's actually very tempting. Like yesterday I had to copy code into Notepad, tweak it, and then give it to ChatGPT because I don't want to find myself talking to the director of our organization and him saying, hey, why did you paste this code into ChatGPT? If he does, I want to be able to say, well, see, this is all generic, has nothing to do with this. It's just regular Angular code. There's nothing special about it. Okay, so I have this code, and I would like to strongly type event. I like to tell it like the code I'm getting, and then to kind of set the context and then tell it what I want to do in 2 steps for ChatGPT. But it's like when I say I have this code, it'll just go crazy explaining to me what the code is, and I actually want it just to strongly type it. Let's see, it is June 5th, 8:25 a.m. And router event. There we go. I thought I tried that. I could have sworn I tried that. Maybe not. Let's see. Oh, it looks like I need to do this event as router event. That's crazy though. Because it looks like there is a router event. Can I just call it events? Because I feel like, okay, I could see why you'd want to call it router events so you know what's going on, but it's like, so this is a perfect example of something I would not do at work. I would not go, okay, now why are we, I wouldn't dig into this because, you have shit to do. You have deadlines, you got stuff you got to do. But since I'm here, let's figure this out. It looks like Angular / router has an event called, or has an interface object. The router event already. It's where it's named router event. However, it's not all events emitted by this are router events. So, um, seems like event confusing. Base name. People typically use. And this is the kind of thing that I could totally see. Let's see. I'm getting blown up on my. Oh no. Oh. So just vacation stuff with my son. No biggie. I don't. Gosh, I find that to be. I just think router event. I almost want to call it like router events. Events. Oh. Events. And then change that to router events. Or router event types. And then, okay. So I think that's a good thing. And now I want to say that this takes in a router event types. And then I want to basically just copy this code out. And then I want to, before I do that, okay, so basically I think what all we get out of this is being able to say, hey, this tabular, and then we get that. We want that to still work after this. So now I just want this to be handle events. So basically all this code does is subscribe. That's the only thing it does, and give it a function. Now I don't know if we're going to have a scoping issue here. We may have a scoping issue, so we might have to bind this. It would be really nice if I could just confidently be like, oh, and then now we're going to have a scoping issue. I don't quite understand why sometimes we have to bind it and sometimes we don't. And I think it might have to do with just something with the way that Angular transpiles things. You know, it's like, so sometimes it handles it for you and sometimes it doesn't. Because I have really not been able to come with a rhyme or reason on that. But basically it does not seem like it works because our so inspect, and let's look at our console. Yeah, this set layout. So now I believe all we have to do is say bind and this, and yeah, and now it's working. And basically I think what we're doing, what happens, I believe this is how I've God, I spent hours and hours watching videos about this. I believe what happens is that when JavaScript comes in and it finds something like this, and then it comes over here, and if it finds the word function, and for some reason apparently it finds the word function in this specific thing, even though I don't have the word function, but if it finds the word function, so I'm assuming that when it gets transpiled, the word function is there, it actually creates a new this. And the new this overwrites the old this. But when you add this code here, this bind and this, it doesn't create a new this. Or it does create a new this, but it assigns it to the one that it was bound to. Alternatively, we could have made this an arrow function. Some people call it a fat arrow function. And the reason they call it a fat arrow is because technically that's really an arrow. But that is what you can make it that a function that goes that way, and that is sort of a shortcut way of saying use the current context, not the old context. I think people don't find, for some reason, the word fat has now become like a word that is something that triggers some people. So I think now we just call it an arrow function, and it makes sense to just call it an arrow function because there is no actual arrow thing. So implementation. So now this handle router events does two things, right? It checks to see if there's a navigation event, and then it calls set layout, which I think is okay. And then the console log will go away. So it looks like that. I believe this will be very easy to unit test, because basically maybe I think what we're going to do to have to unit test this, and I'm kind of thinking down the future, something I don't have to worry about right now, but is we'll have to create some sort of object and then pass it in as and tell it that it's a router events type, I guess. I don't know. It'll be interesting because I've never really done unit tests with this sort of aliasing up here, but I'm guessing that we'll have to do some sort of like tell this that, hey, this is a router events type, and that it is a navigation end object. It'll be interesting. We'll learn something on that. That'll be fun. And then it'll go and check if its navigation ends. It probably would be easier to unit test if we say like something like what is an instance of, what does that return? So basically it's just a boolean. It returns a boolean, which is a true or false. So I'm wondering if we should like convert that to a string and then pass it to set layout. See, what we could do is like, okay, so if event, so we might end up needing to add one more layer here to sort of have some code that sort of decodes this to determine if it's the right kind of event, and if it is, then to call set layout, or then pass that, and then that thing is getting a string instead, and if it's navigation end, then is there, okay, so I wonder if there's a way that this can be converted into a string. Okay, so I have this code. Code to convert navigation and to a string. Hmm. So it looks like I would like to do this. I guess this. Code that and it is past event, it returns the string navigation end. Ah. So it looks like this would be, and that, the constructor, yeah, that is, it seems like that should be rock solid. So I could just do this. Router event type. I'm actually going to say it has to be a string. And then we'll add another thing. It says handle router event type. And it's going to take a string, event name. And it takes a string. And it returns a Boolean. We learned this before, that it's a lot easier to unit test if you return something. Type string and then we basically want to say this code, so we say this dot handle router event types and then router event type. And this we're just going to say return true for now. Return true. And then this should be very easy peasy to oof. Oh no. Okay, so the problem is we need the actual event. Okay, so let's try this. Question mark? That's weird. Oh, wait. Okay, that solves that problem, but I don't know why. Okay, so what did we... Okay, let's try this. That is weird that now it doesn't... It's like that. That doesn't have that. Let's try this. All this just to make unit tests go easier. All right, I'm backing out of all this. I don't know what to do. We'll figure it out when unit test time comes. So we got this stuff working. Yeah, I have no idea why I can figure that out now. But we do know that this stuff works, and I want to change this to a Boolean so it's easier to unit test, and I just want to return true. I've actually started to notice this in a lot of code now, where people will just return true from a function. And I'm pretty sure it is just for the sake of unit testing. This might end up being easier than I was hoping, but if not, we'll spend time on unit test time to try to figure out how to unit test that. And I could probably, like, if literally I could probably just do this. Okay, how do I? Unit test with Jasmine Karma for so this is good. So I don't understand. I just want to get coverage. I don't freaking care. URL, sum path, nav end, spy on component result, handle route. Okay, so yeah, so I don't think we need this. I think we'll get our 100% just from that, and then that. So I guess actually, generally the spy on, I'm like, that's not worth doing. But now that I think about it, it's like, well, for this, we actually do want it, if it's a navigation end, to actually run our code. A lot of times when you do spy on, you're like, almost every time I've ever seen spy on before this, it's been to run, to see that it ran some third party's code or something whenever something happened. But see, we do create a brand new object called navend. Anyways, so that is good, and I think it does work. Yep, and let's just make sure that for this, yep, and then custom. And then if we did something weird, oh, interesting. So we did. So it did throw an error, and I don't know if that's a bad thing. It seems like that's a bad thing, right? Oh, and that's probably because in my main config app in my routes, I don't have one for anything else. So I think if I do, okay, so just so I can, so I'm thinking that I can just put like a wildcard asterisk type thing there, or maybe two asterisks, and it'll always do it. But I would like the actual sort of official way. So, um, um, if it recognize this typically handled. So I just want to see, like, how do we usually do this? It's not about they'll get a runtime typically. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I just throw this at the end, and this is exactly. And it's weird to me that um, that it's two asterisks, but route and colon route equals. Oh, funny thing is that so the guy is here to get our new internet installed, and I guess a thing that whenever you get internet installed, whenever you get like a connection to the internet, they like to go around and find the previous ones and cut them. But we actually have two. So last time AT&T came out, they literally went out and cut our Comcast one mid. My wife was doing her show, and mid show they just cut it, and she's just like, "Where the heck did my internet go?" And they couldn't get the new one. They couldn't put it back. So Comcast had to come out and fix it, and that took all day. Um, I think I called it weird. I put weird up here because it's such a pain in the butt. What I used to do is I would be like custom and add something, but then that shows up in your history and it's just a pain in the butt. Oh, I misspelled route and then I never added it to my routes. Our dogs are letting the guy know that if he comes back here, he's gonna have problems. We have a German Shepherd, a Husky, a Jack Russell Terrier, and a Bichon Frise. Uh oh, they're all getting locked in with me. It's about to get crazy in here, guys. Okay, cool. So, oh, but I actually want it to redirect. Okay, so I would like it to redirect another route to actually slash without any errors. I don't want it to just like accept any route and then do that. I would rather it redirect to. I like it. I like it a lot. So replace that to this. It is 8:52. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, so if we go to any path, so basically if you go to the custom path, you're going to go to custom. If you go to tabular, you're going to go to tabular app. If you go to the no path, you're going to get custom. And if we wildcard, we're going to get redirected back to the path, and we see no errors in the console. So that is a good way to do that. One thing I was thinking about, like, if we had like router, if we end up using, I don't think we will, but if we end up using router outlet to handle this, then we will likely, what am I trying to say? If we use it, then we would have to have like another set of routes, and I don't really know exactly how to do that. I've definitely worked it and all that, but usually it's set up, so I just like tweak what's there. I don't really understand it, and I don't think it's really worth digging into. But so next time, basically I want to convert this, instead of being on click toggle, I would like it to be link. Like I still want the icons of the button, but I want it to be use the router directive. This code, but instead of using the click event, like to still keep buttons and icons, but use the routing link directive. Now, could I do all this stuff by hand? Absolutely. I'm confident I could do all this stuff by hand and look it up and find Stack Overflows and all that. I mean, absolutely. But but like, yeah, like I would never come up with a solution as clean as this. This is a freaking clean ass solution if it works. Can't always count on it working, but if it doesn't work, and it would have taken hours and hours and hours, probably at least an hour, to kind of go through and find everything on and get it actually working. But that is a thing of beauty right there. Cannot believe how nice that is. Anyways, it is 8:56, so I got to go. Happy coding, everybody. Bye.